This is Heart-repreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart. With your host, Terri Levine. Listen every week as Terri tackles the topics that will help you become a successful heart-centered entrepreneur. Be sure to read the blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog. Come back often and add this show to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also follow Terri on Twitter at MentorTerri and on Facebook.com/Heart-repreneur Terri Levine. And now here's Terri.
Welcome to Heart-repreneur Radio and TV show with Terri Levine. I'm your co-host, Velma Gallant, and I'm thrilled to be here today. You can connect with Terri, me, and other like-minded heart-based business owners in the Heart-repreneurs with Terri Levine Facebook group, so go check it out. And as usual, if you like our show, please hit that like button, subscribe, and we always love those 5-star reviews. Today's quote, "One good conversation can shift the direction of change forever," Linda Lambert. And today's show topic is how to use conversations to transform minds and lives. Our guest this week is Marcia Reynolds. You know, when I ask that too. Dr. Marcia Reynolds, president of Covisioning, is fascinated by the brain, especially what triggers the feelings of connection, commitment, and possibility. Her focus is teaching people to have conversations that are meaningful and possibly life-changing experiences. She has coached leaders and taught programs in emotional intelligence, coaching skills, and leadership effectiveness in 43 countries, and is on the faculty of coach training schools in China, Russia, the Philippines, and the US. She has published 4 best-selling books. Global Gurus lists Marcia as the number 4 coach in the world, and the number 1 woman on the list. She continues to research, write, and teach her contribution to helping make the world a better place for all. Welcome to the show, Marcia.
Thank you.
Okay, so conversations. I like the quote that was picked for today. One good conversation can shift the direction of change forever. And I know that you are fascinated with the kinds of things that the conversation can transform. Can you share a little bit about the work that you've been doing lately?
Okay. Well, actually, for 30 years, I was looking at how do you really work with people to change their minds? Because that's everybody's intention is we want people to change and see things differently. But you just can't tell people do that, see it this way. And it was, I was always looking at different ways of what do you say to people. And then when I found coaching 25 years ago, I went, oh, it's not about what you say, it's how you listen. And that shifted everything for me. And now this is why I'm so passionate and I teach coaching around the world, but I'm constantly researching not just the skill, but the connection, the energetic connection we need to make in order that people feel comfortable to have these conversations with us right away, which then can lead to the change in their thinking, their perspective, in a way that, again, can make a difference for them for the rest of their lives. So I'm adamant, I'm passionate, and I love the way using a coaching approach in our conversation works.
So what would you say a coaching approach is in conversation?
Yeah. Well, again, in the past, we've always looked at what do I say to people? And we often write scripts, right? And we try to memorize, this is what I'm going to say, especially if it's a difficult conversation. But in truth, the best thing we can do is help people to look at their thinking. Because the more emotions we have, the less we're able to actually look at how we think and to analyze it and to see another way. We get really stuck in our thinking and we actually protect it and don't even realize it. But if I just listen to you and I summarize back, so this is what you're telling me, this is how you see it. And I see that you're really passionate about this, but not this. Just the sharing of what I hear you say and the reflection of how you express it makes you stop and take your story out here and look at it and go, oh, well, yeah, maybe that is an old way of looking at things, and there is another possibility. And you're right. I do really want to do this more than this. And again, in a way that I can't do for myself, that you can do for me, just by helping me look at my thinking, my feelings, my reactions, and then ask me questions. So I question myself, which is far more powerful than me saying, you should do this because it's the best thing for you. Which
right. It doesn't work with teenagers. Why would it work with adults?
Well, we know from the medical field, if you tell someone, if you don't do this, you'll die, and people will do it for about a week, and then they go back to old behavior.
Right. So I love how you shared that it's about listening and summarizing, because one, I really connect to that. I think listening is super important when it comes to our interactions with each other. It's kind of like, you said we're usually spending a lot of time thinking about what we're going to say, whereas listening gives us that real connection with someone, that energetic connection that you mentioned. And I also love that summarizing it back, it's like you've taken what you've heard and presented it to the person so that they have the opportunity to see it, and bird's eye view their own thoughts.
Right. And it has the dual effect. Not only do you're giving me the capability of actually observing my thinking, but I feel as if you've listened to me, which makes me feel as if you care, that you value what I have to offer. So it makes me more comfortable to be in this conversation with you, that I don't think you're just going to tell me what's wrong with me and what I should do differently, but that we're actually going to think this through together, and you value my input. So there's that, that effect as well, which forwards the conversation.
Well, and I think too, when I feel heard, it allows me to open up just a little bit more and reveal a little bit more.
Right. I feel safe, which is the big part of a conversation is I have to feel safe with you to have this conversation. And if I feel like you're listening and valuing me, and I always say, when you listen to someone, just receive what they're offering you. You might, open with a sentence, but listen to their story and appreciate their experience, whatever it is. You can't tell someone, oh, you shouldn't see it that way. It's just that they do. So we can only understand this is the way they perceive it right now, and they're reacting to it right now. And if we share that back and then ask questions like, is there another possibility? Or, how long has this been going on? Just simple questions. Again, we can start to evaluate our own thinking, and we might see some gaps in our logic, or that we're making up things that could happen in the future that maybe will, maybe won't. And, and that we're holding on to what we think people will do when we don't know. But we don't know we're doing that until someone reflects it back to us with, I always say, with compassionate curiosity, not interrogation, but with cares. Like, I understand this is the way you see it, and here's what I hear you saying, and I'm just wondering if we can explore this in a different way.
I like the term compassionate curiosity. I think that speaks a lot about how we connect to people. And I think too, with conversations, when we engage in these kinds of conversations, because I can see the value in this, not only from the perspective of creating a coaching business, right? Because that's absolutely where we would use this. But I can see it supporting a business owner with respect to how they connect with their staff or their contractors, how they connect with their customers, how they connect with the customers or the potential customers that aren't happy.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Customer service too, right. Well, I teach this to leaders all over the world, and I'm not trying to make them a coach. I'm giving them, this is a coaching approach to conversations. That's all. It's just a way to enter into your conversations differently than you're used to. So absolutely, I teach it to leaders to engage with employees, with their customers, their clients, and especially the ones that are upset. You never want to again, tell them what to do. The best thing in that moment is that they feel heard.
Exactly. And actually, for that matter, one of Terri's books is Stop Managing, Start Coaching.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important that leaders develop these skills and bring them to the table inside of their businesses, inside of their organizations, inside of their families, because one of the biggest leaders is our parents, right?
Yeah. Right. And often leaders will say, I don't have time to coach, like it takes forever. And I'm just saying, no. I'm just giving you a way to enter in, again, to receive what you're hearing, to appreciate their experience, and then just summarize the key words back to them and ask a clarifying question. Just that, will only take a few minutes. And it's amazing how quickly people will start exploring and look at possibilities in a way that will never happen if you just say, well, here, go do this. You're not doing it right. Go do this, which then they'll either comply and not think for themselves, or they will resist and find a way it doesn't work. So this is a way of engaging and quickly. You can do this in the hallway. It doesn't require a sit-down hour coaching conversation.
That's right. You're adding skills to their toolkit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you published I mentioned that you published 4 best-selling books. Tell me a little bit about which one's your favorite, if you can have a favorite, because they're kind of like children, and then why it's your favorite.
Well, of course, right now, my favorite is my latest one, and it's the one that's been doing exponentially well, which is the Coach the Person, Not the Problem. And it was what I really felt. It's a lot of what we're talking about. How do you be with the person and coach their thinking instead of trying to just problem solve, which is external? So can I help someone transform their thinking instead of just shift and change their behavior? It's doing so well around the world that it's amazing. And people are just really thanking me for making it simple for them, that I just lay it out in a simple way. And so I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of the book and what it's done and the impact it's making in the world. So, yeah.
So if you were to pull out one of your tips or one of your tips or chapters, which one would you want to share with our listeners?
Well, there's a lot of tips in the book about how to establish a strong, a courageous, caring presence. And I always say they want you to be present, not perfect. So like leaders think I have to have all the answers. If I'm going to try this coaching thing, I have to be perfect at it. No, you don't. Just be with them. And just give them a safe space to talk so they can be themselves and feel comfortable with you. So it's really about the energy you bring. And actually, my first book, Outsmart Your Brain, started as when I started really looking at how can I get over the stuff in my head so I can be present with myself in this moment as well as with you. So I've been working on this for years, and then adding in, the emotional states we want to bring to our presence. Because again, it's not just what we say, but it's how we help people to feel by what we bring, by the emotions we bring that kind of like, give the energy to our presence.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of a quick time out here. And when we continue, thank you for listening with us. I hope that we've got you really engaged. I know that I've got a couple of ideas about some good questions for Marcia when we return. So we'll see you soon.
Hey there, it's Terri Levine. I just wanted to pop in for just a moment as you're listening here to Heart-repreneur Radio and watching Heart-repreneur TV. We have so many new and exciting things going on. So you can watch a free masterclass. Highly recommend to get a conveyor belt of qualified prospects. That's at TL, like Terri Levine, tlwebinar.com. Head over there, enjoy it, keep listening and sharing the show.
Welcome back. I'm with my guest, Marcia Reynolds, and you can connect with her at, Marcia, can you share the best way for our listeners to connect with you?
Absolutely. My website is covisioning.com, one word. And I'm at Marcia, but it's Marcia, and that's why you stumble over it, because it doesn't look like Marcia. It's one of those things I've, dealt with all my life. But it's Marcia at covisioning.com. And I'm on, LinkedIn and all over the internet, YouTube, lots of tip videos on YouTube.
Perfect. And I want our listeners to remember that she's got 4 great books out there. So make sure you stop by Amazon and check out Marcia's books. Okay. So we left off talking about your books. And you talked about your one book, your latest book is giving some excellent tips regarding how to be present and be able to coach for leaders. And then your first book had to do with the same kind of thing for yourself. So it was Outsmart Your Brain, I think is what you said the name of the book was. And I think that's really, really important, because I think we need to remember, or I like to remember, that not only do I have the opportunity to lead others, I also have the opportunity to lead myself. Mm-hmm. And these same kinds of questions can be supported in coaching myself as well. Has that been your experience as well?
Well, it's difficult to coach ourselves, but what you were saying is that I have to take care of myself in order to apply, to be present. So if I've got, a worried energy in the space, and I'm worried about, it could be work or it could be my personal life, or I've got too many things on my mind and I'm overwhelmed. Well, that's going to affect my presence. And, and it goes a little deeper. It's like, what is it I'm needing out of this conversation? From the person, when it's not what you need, it's what they need. So it goes at different levels, starting with self-care all the way through looking at what gets in our way in our own brain that would stop me from being compassionately curious with you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so the value that I'm hearing is it's kind of like pass it on. Your leader, the leader comes to you and you support them. You give them the compassionate curiosity. Mm-hmm. You ask them the questions and paraphrase back to them. And at the same time, you get to teach them those skills. You are in effect leading by example. Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so important that we share this with each other, because if I feel like, wow, that was really important and you made me feel good in that conversation, that's going to be something that I'm going to want to do for others. So it is a pass it on. It is a pass it on, and hopefully in the long run, then we create more work environments and a world where we're actually listening to each other in a very caring, understanding way.
Well, and I know that's part of Terri's goal with Heart-repreneurs and building up the heart-centered entrepreneurs and business owners. And I think that's what you're creating as well when you're modeling and sharing the skills of how to be fully present with your team, how to be fully present with your leadership team, and all the way down, and passing on those skills to each level. I really liked the name of your first book, How to Outsmart Your Brain. I'm kind of, what inspired you to write the book, and what is your hope in how it can impact your readers?
Well, the first edition of the book I wrote like in 1997. I found Daniel Goleman's work early on. And I was one of the first to start teaching emotional intelligence around the world in many government agencies. In fact, when the government called me, the National Institute of Health, they're like, we want someone to teach this. And we went online, and the only people we could find were you and Daniel Goleman, and he cost too much. So it's like, I just knew it was going to be important. So I grabbed it and created a program and put it out on the internet. And, my second master's is instructional design. So I could design training programs fairly quickly. And what I did, how I first started the book, was I just recorded one of my workshops and then had it transcribed and then built on the book from there. And so I felt I needed to give people a chance, not just to go through the training program, but then to have, they have the workbook, but to have a book if they wanted afterwards. So it started just by, I need to have a product to go along with my program. And again, that book did very well. It's on its second edition now. Because things change in all these years in terms of what we understand with the brain. And I, since then I've done my doctorate and I do a lot of research. So I've updated the book. But right. So it's not that old of a book now, because it has a lot of new research, but the foundation is still really important. And the subtitle is How to Manage Your Mind When Emotions Take the Wheel.
Ooh, oh, that's good. That's really good. That's really good. And then, the really juicy part of that was how you created it.
Yeah.
I think that's really valuable to notice, because a lot of our listeners, what if they have a program that they're very proud of, and that is a possibility on how they can transform the program into a book and be able to impact more people.
Absolutely. People often say to me, oh, I should write a book. But they think they need to sit down and write 200 pages. And it started off actually just as like a 60-page booklet. But, if you record, like a webinar even that you might give, and transcribe that, and you could start with just an ebook, and then start building on it. And then it could be, a small book. And then if you have more to say, then you can add to it. And that's what I did, so it really, it wasn't as difficult as people like to make it to be, so right.
I think, well, and that kind of is in keeping with what the context of your book is how to outsmart your brain. Well, how many times does our brain make things a heck of a lot more complicated than it needs to be?
Always, and scary. The brain's primary purpose is to protect you. So it's a bit of a pessimist. This is going to be hard. This is going to be awful. Those people are going to react terribly. The book I wrote before this, The Discomfort Zone, was on how to have difficult conversations that make a difference. Because leaders, whenever I would teach and I would do a coaching demonstration, the topic was always, oh, I have to have a difficult conversation, and it's going to be awful, and they're going to be emotional, and they're going to quit, and whatever. They were making all this stuff up, and often, most of the time, it was never as bad as they imagined. So
So how often do we walk into those conversations already thinking about what we have to say instead of walking in with a clean whiteboard kind of thing?
Right.
Giving.
Right. You can always lay out, like something didn't go well. Not you didn't do well, but just, this didn't go so well. Would you be willing to have a conversation with me about what we might do differently next time? And then move into the coaching approach, so tell me how you saw the situation and why what led you to the choices you made. Oftentimes people will have already thought through their mistakes and said, I know I did this and this is why I did this and I've been thinking about it and this is what I would do differently. So we give them the opportunity to say what they've been thinking about. We have to treat people as if they're smart and they're creative and they're resourceful and they have things to draw on. Not that they always need our expert advice. We need to hear their thoughts too.
Well, and early on in our conversation, you were talking about an energetic connection. And so when I walk into a conversation with someone and I've got all these thoughts going on about what's not going to go right or that kind of thing, I actually walk in with cluttered energy versus walking in with the clean energy of compassionate curiosity.
Right. I often ask the leaders I work with, so what happens when you enter the room? Because the moment you enter into the space, you're having an impact, the energy you bring with you before you even open your mouth, whether it's to one person or a group, to the entire team. What's happening as you walk into the room? So you're absolutely right. If I'm thinking this is going to be horrible and I'm bracing myself, well, that's the energy I'm going to put out. And people, as a part of survival, we read energy. This isn't, like a strange thing. This is well known that, all of us animals do that we have to read the energy to know if it's going to be safe. And so if we feel your discomfort and your fear, or even your disappointment and irritation, that's going to impact me. That's going to shut my brain down. That's going to put me on edge. And it's going to be difficult to move into this conversation and have it be open and have people share what's on their mind and even be a little vulnerable.
Well, and what kind of information are you going to be inviting if you're walking in?
Absolutely.
With all these preconceived notions. Whereas if you come in with the compassionate curiosity, you might find some things out, or I might find some things out that I didn't expect. And it gives me an opportunity to actually be a better leader.
Absolutely. I often say, look forward to being surprised.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. They could surprise you in what they already have thought through, what the option they saw that you didn't, and how delightful that is if they surprise you. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think too, if a leader actually opens up and says, "Oh, I never thought about it that way."
Yeah. Right. It makes the person feel like, oh, look, I thought of something you didn't, which is good. There was a quote recently I read by the woman who's the CEO of Microsoft. She said, "Don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all."
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I really like that. That's excellent. Okay. So we've talked about your latest book. And then we also talked about the first book, which was about, oh shoot, they're just all escaping me now. It's Outsmart Your Brain. There we go. And then the third book was about the difficult conversation. So what kind of topic did you touch on with your second book?
My second book was actually based on my doctoral dissertation, where I researched strong, smart women in the workplace and the challenges that we face. Because I was finding all the books and research was dealing with women as if we were all the same, that we didn't lean in and we were passive. And I'm like, not my clients, not the women who have big goals and want to achieve things. Sometimes they lean in too much, or they do too much because they think they're the only ones that can do it right. So I had 100 women in my research base, and looked for the themes and the challenges that we face. And I did it because it's like, that was me. And none of the books work for me. It's like, I already do that. And I do that too much. So I did the research, and then I met my editor at a coaching conference. She was just looking for new ideas for a book. And I sat next to her. I was recently looking at, it was a Matthew McConaughey quote where he said, if you believe in luck, you believe in God.
Oh, I like that.
And it was just this lucky thing. And it ended up being a published book, and so I have a book. It's called Wander Woman, because strong, smart women get bored easily and tend to wander, and go from position to position or job to job. So not wonder, but Wander Woman. And that's also still does well around the world with women. And it's not culturally, based just here in the West. I get women from all over the world that thank me because they thought something was wrong with them, and now they know there's many women like them. And they said, I still might be crazy, but it's nice to know I'm not alone.
I like that. I like that a lot. So we've actually come to the end of our time. This went really fast, and I know there's a lot more information that we could have touched on. So I want to make sure that our listeners know exactly what's the best way to connect with you.
Yeah. Again, take a look at my website, and there's a connection, button there. But it leads to Marcia at covisioning.com. But people connect with me and message me on LinkedIn all the time. Like I said, I have little tip videos on YouTube for leaders that are just 3 minutes. I have a lot of them, and a lot of people connect with me there. So I'm out there. You can easily find me. Yeah.
Okay. So that's Marcia Reynolds, Marcia Reynolds. And I want to thank our listeners too for stopping by and sharing your time with us. I hope you found value. Be sure to head to Heart-repreneurs with Terri Levine on Facebook, and you'll be able to connect with other heart-based business owners. And if you liked this, please hit that like button, subscribe. And we always love those 5-star reviews. We look forward to seeing you in our next show.
You've been listening to Heart-repreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart with your host, Terri Levine. This show is produced every week for your enjoyment and education. To make sure you never miss a single show, add us to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also read Terri's latest blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog, or follow Terri on Twitter at MentorTerri, and on Facebook.com/Heart-repreneur Terri Levine. Your questions and comments are always welcome and appreciated. Send them to Terri on either Facebook or Twitter. Thank you for listening.